Energy Learning Network. This will also be available after the event, and you'll see in question 1, you'll need to select Other and enter Local Energy Markets as the name of the event. Rainer, if you could put up the slides, that would be great. The CES one first, please. So just a very quick overview on who we are. Community Energy Scotland is a member-led independent organisation providing technical and practical support to community groups and organisations at any stage of their energy project development. There's a lot of you here I know are very familiar with Community Energy Scotland. So I know you will already be aware of this, but for those who may not be aware, I'll just go through these quickly. We also enable members to network and to help them navigate the increasing complexity of our sector. We represent our members at Scottish and UK government levels and also at wider industry level, collaborating with other enabling organisations who share our values to amplify the voice of community energy. We're not a funding organisation, which is important to remember if you're not already aware, but we do work with finance support organisations and grant funders to support our members. There is a commitment from the British government as part of the local power plan, as many of you will know, to support and invest in community energy. We're waiting with bated breath to see what the details of this is going to look like, and we hope we're to be able to be one of the vehicles to help deliver that support in the future. The next slide, thanks, Rina. Sorry, you're on it, beg your pardon. The Energy Learning Network, this is a long-term project, a UK-wide capacity building programme to help communities start up and develop their energy-related work. The programme is shaped by an advisory board, which is made up of community organisations with energy interests. And by helping to build knowledge with sessions like this and other peer learning activities, the aim is to scale up community low-carbon projects. It's funded by the National Lottery and it comprises 6 partners altogether all over the UK. So us, Community Energy Wales, Community Energy England, Action Renewables in Northern Ireland, and the Centre of Sustainable Energy and Ashton Climate Solutions. You'll find things like access to our technical helpline and peer mentoring opportunities, which are both open to community groups across the country, on our own resources website, and also the the Energy Learning Network, we call it ELN for short, landing page, and these links will be in the chat for you. So I'd like now to hand over to Tom to give us an overview of local energy markets. Thank you, Tom. Take it away.
Right. Just share my screen. Great. Is that all coming across?
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, Kath. So hello everyone. I'm Tom Noble. I'm a technical officer at Community Energy Scotland. So I'll just give a quick overview today of local energy markets and the energy local model as well. Just going to go through context of local energy markets, energy local clubs, and like Kath said, I'll do a policy update as well regarding P441 and the impacts that may have. So just to go like a quick, more broad view, if we look at the current electricity system in the UK, it's largely built around, or historically, it's built around large generators. Nowadays, we're getting more to a case where there's more distributed renewables, battery storage, and the cost of this is coming down. And so it brings about the opportunity for local markets. And this, in kind of harsh circumstances, this improves resilience, efficiency, and carbon outcomes due to using the grid and the capacity we have available more efficiently. So just to kind of give you an idea of where they fit in, you can kind of put local energy markets at the distribution level of the electricity network. So this is just a very simplistic look at the electricity network. So we kind of sit your you go from the transmission network, which is your high voltage across the UK, and then you have your regional distribution network operators, and your local energy markets normally sit at the level what you call below the primary substation level. Um, I have put a little comment on here because there is peer-to-peer, which can be more national, but I am kind of more looking at local markets today. Um, so what does a local energy market allow you to do? Well, essentially what it is a way to generate, buy and sell electricity within a certain kind of geographic area under the same primary substation. And the focus of them is that it allows both the reduction in energy bills, but also benefits generators by increasing their income and also decreasing the cost of electricity locally. And this has knock-on effects, for example, increased resilience due to better use of the grid capacity. So it can reduce curtailment in certain instances. So um, now if we go on to types of local energy market, I have put a little comment here. I've kind of grouped together the main ones that I think are kind of interesting. It's not necessarily reflective of the full landscape, but it does give you a good idea. So you've got energy local clubs, um, and this really is a group of consumers that come together, they club together, and they choose to buy electricity from a local generator at an agreed price. I'll go into these in more detail later on. You've also got private wire supply. This is really just entirely disconnected from the electricity network. We have a generator and a consumer connected by their own physical cable. So you bypass the grid entirely. Now, this does have advantages in that you avoid the costs associated with being grid connected. However, there is significantly high capital costs related to creating these kind of networks, but it is an option. Behind the meter supply, this is a relatively common one, just really any energy that is used before it enters the grid. So it can be just at a household level, solar panels on your roof, things like that. Peer-to-peer trading is a growing method, and you could say it's kind of interlinked with Energy Local Club method in ways. But really what peer-to-peer is a way of connecting buyers and sellers to trade electricity directly. Now, in the perfect scenario, this would be trading directly on a platform without using a kind of intermediary. But in the electricity network in the UK, we require an electricity supplier to be the intermediary. But you can have those models out there, for example, Urban Chain, which are already in existence. And these models can be both peer-to-peer, can be at a national level or at a local level, trading electricity. It's more just a kind of platform. Another method that I have put on here, another model, is Social Energy Services Company. It really is quite an interesting one. It's still, I would say, in more pilot stage, but it basically allows, for example, a company to come together and they take on the responsibility for, say, for example, taking out a loan to buy solar panels for people's roofs. And then they take on the responsibility of selling kind of electricity to those households at reduced prices. But whilst those households, so they get the benefit of reduced cost electricity, as well as other schemes such as putting in new heating systems. And this kind of groups together, so it's almost like Energy Local Club plus other things, kind of other benefits that you can get. So that's a kind of broad summary of local energy market options. What I'm now going to go on to is look at energy local clubs specifically. Now I should give a bit of acknowledgement to and thanks to Energy Local for developing this model. So I'm just going to give a summary of it really to give you an idea of how it works. So why would you be looking at an energy local club, or more broadly, local energy markets as well, we could say. At the moment, you have local generators that will sell power to suppliers, and then the households will buy that back at 2 to 3 times the price. So there's a clear, there's very much a kind of way that we could reduce this, and that's where energy local clubs come in. They allow households to buy electricity from these local generators, and it's at a price that's more reflective of its value. So it both allows the generator to sell their electricity at a higher price, and the consumers buy that electricity at a lower price compared to what they would buy directly from grid, from the electricity supplier, I should say. So just to go through a kind of step of how this would occur. So the local households and generator form a club, formerly called a cooperative. In order to have an energy local club in place, you need smart metering in place in each household that will be part of the club. And that allows you to record when and how much electricity is being used. The members agree on a match tariff. So that is paid to the generator whenever the generator is generating and consumption wants to occur. So it's when they're coinciding. The licensed supplier works to top up the supply when local generation is insufficient. So you have an extra tariff on top. And that will then mean that the consumer is paying 2 different tariffs. One will be for local generation, and one is for time of use tariff when there is no local generation available. The electricity supplier will also purchase any surplus power from the generator, which is not used by local consumers, and manage all the billing. So this is a very simplistic diagram, but it kind of gives you an idea of where things are flowing. So your generator has a PPA with your licensed supplier, and that is for any electricity that's not used within the Energy Local Club. Between the consumers, which can be businesses, it can be households, they'll have a match price, which will be greater for the generator, it will be greater than the power purchase agreement it has with the licensed supplier. And for the consumer, it will be less than the time of use tariff that they have with the supplier. This is also just a demonstrator. One of the restrictions for Energy Local Club is that it has to be under the same primary substation. So what you need is you need generator, local generation, and consumers within the same or under the same primary substation. So just to kind of give a broader idea of what is happening in Scotland, because energy local clubs, there's already a number of them in England and in Wales, which you'll hear later on. And there's also development of energy local clubs and interest in Scotland. So there's an ongoing project at the moment, which CES is leading in collaboration with Energy Local, for 3 new energy local clubs in Scotland. And Emmy will be talking about one of these later on. To give an idea of some of the challenges we encounter in Scotland at the moment, with energy local clubs, and we have a lower number of smart meters. And there's also a lack of connectivity with the smart meters due to basically the network they use to connect them in Scotland. There's also been a challenge. This is going to relate to P441, but there's a challenge at the moment, regulatory challenge in relation to the voltage levels between the generator and consumer. So when you have an energy local club at the moment, the generator and the consumer needs to be at the same voltage level. And this is a kind of restriction on energy local clubs at the moment, or to basically make them be more widely used. Yeah. But the opportunities that energy local clubs can provide are, first off, reduced bills for consumers. It has the potential to use the grid capacity more efficiently and then can have the ability to reduce curtailment in certain instances. And it also provides increased revenue for generators. So just to go on the end to look at P441. P441 is a proposed modification to the Balancing and Settlement Code that's being proposed by Elexon. And what the Balancing and Settlement Code is, for anyone who's not aware, is rules that are govern how electricity is metered and traded. So what P441 is trying to do is trying to create categorizations called complex sites. And this will allow certain changes to occur which will be beneficial for local energy clubs. One of those is that, as I said before, you will be able to connect a generator to consumers at different voltage levels. And that will then widen the opportunity for further generators to come on board who may not have been able to, and also widen the opportunity for what consumers can come on board. It's been developing for about 2 years, and it is hopefully we're hopefully going to hear a decision before the end of this year. That's how it's currently looking like. There's expected to be a consultation over the summer as the modification has been approved by Elexon, but it's now being under consideration by Ofgem. So yeah, just to summarize what I've gone over there. Yeah, local energy markets, it's a great opportunity for being able to trade locally and reduce energy bills and also provide benefits to generators. In terms of from a CES perspective, this aligns with several of our goals, including community empowerment and energy justice, and it also enables local control and resilience of energy consumption and generation. So thanks very much. I'll hand you across to Emmy.
Yeah, just waiting for Raina to share my slides and we'll get started. Thank you, Raina. Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Emmy. I am the head of products and services at Ynys Herrig, which is Tyre's Community Development Trust. For those who don't know, Tyre's a small island, about a 4-hour ferry from Oban. It's got a population of around 700 people. We are cited often as the windiest and sunniest place in the UK, which is really great for our wind and solar developments. But we're facing challenges that are shared across a lot of rural and island communities. And of particular relevance to this webinar today is our aging 16-year-old wind turbine and the grid constraints that come in the form of the transmission impact threshold in Scotland. Next slide, please, Raina. So why did we start looking at local energy markets? Very simply, in 2022, Tilly, who's our 900 kilowatt wind turbine, turned 12 years old. And as she approached the second half of her lifespan, the insurance and the maintenance conditions became far less favourable. after the turbine broke down and we had to have a full generator replacement. So we knew that we needed to make a long-term plan for income from our renewable assets, preferably a plan that would also support Tyree's net zero ambitions while reducing local energy costs and emissions. Ambitious, we know. But in particular, we knew that we really wanted to look beyond simply just installing a new renewable asset. We wanted to maximize the income from our current renewable assets and identify community-owned energy models that went beyond simple kind of ownership and then just export to the grid as a form of income. As a result, in the early stages of this project, we were looking much more broadly at what the next phase of community energy on Tyree is going to look like once our turbine retired, and we set about the process to look into potential options. Next slide, please, Raina. So if we take ourselves back to 2022, our broken turbine had just been repaired after 2 years. 2020 was not the best time for a turbine to break down for reasons we all know. We were facing increasing uncertainty of income, and little did we know actually at the time just how much the issues with our wind turbine actually continued for the next 4 years. It's only just a couple of weeks ago been fixed. But crystal ball aside, we weren't to know that. The subsidiary that owns our turbine, Tyree Renewable Energy Limited, recognised that there was a need to start planning for the long-term future of the trust's income. And for all of the reasons outlined in the previous slide, we commissioned Community Energy Scotland to complete an options appraisal on the challenges and opportunities of renewable energy generation and usage in Tyree in late 2022. The options appraisal reviewed 28 options of potential projects for consideration. We had 9 projects that were suitable for further investigation and 3 that were recommended to put forward for a feasibility study. We took forward 2 of those to feasibility, and the first was to set up an energy local club using a battery at our 900 kilowatt wind turbine as the generator. And the second was to set up a private wire network at our Crossapole community hub. Crossapole is the township that has our community-owned shop, fuel station, island centre that hosts a number of businesses and government organisations, and the community-owned business units that we built and now run. We decided not to move forward with a private wire network. We very seriously considered it. There was a variety of reasons, the maintenance of the network itself, but actually one of the large reasons, and it's the same, we also looked at doing a behind the meter. The standing charges were phenomenally prohibitive for the size of meter that we would have needed. And then we realized that we weren't going to be able to connect a battery of a suitable size to the turbine without triggering the transmission impact assessment threshold, which is only 200 kilowatts, and we would have needed a battery far larger than that. So in the end, we decided to move forward with putting a turbine directly into the Energy Local Club, waiting on the regulation modification P441, which I thought I was going to have to explain, but Tom has done far more succinctly than I could. Thanks, Tom. So we've been waiting for that to come through so that we could connect a high voltage generator when our consumers were going to be low voltage. However, while we've been waiting, we have been progressing and have now installed and commissioned a 150 kilowatt solar and 50 kilowatt battery behind the community-owned business units that we built. And we realized that actually, while we were waiting, we could just use that as a regenerator to kickstart the Energy Local Club while we waited on that P441 hopefully coming through to allow us to connect the turbine. And so here we are. So we have 150 kilowatts of solar, 50 kilowatt battery ready to go into our Energy Local Club, which we are just about to start gathering expressions of interest for. Kind of almost doing a soft launch is the way that we view it before we can hopefully add in our turbine next year once P441 is hopefully approved. And we also have to bear in mind as well with our turbine, as many people are starting to approach, that our feed-in tariff is going to run out very soon, March 2029, which is not as far away as it sounds. Next slide, please, Raina. So as a community development trust, we're of course very keen for this project to have a positive impact on the local community and therefore also the local economy. The Energy Local model contributes really positively to the local economy in a various number of ways. One of the really attractive things about Energy Local model for us is that it uses generation that already exists. We're not talking about us needing to install another major wind turbine, and there are other turbines on the island as well from private generators that could join. It's a relatively cost-effective way for us to make better use of local renewables that the community already has, so not just us but other people in the community as well. And it just means that the limited funding that we have to self-fund can be directed to other projects, or if we do choose to install more renewables, it would be a choice and not a necessity. The Energy Local model also makes use of existing infrastructure, which helps avoid, again, the kind of prohibitive capital costs that can often stall community energy projects. Again, that's funding and staff time that can be directed into other community projects, such as housing, childcare, other things that we've got on our plate. There's also a really strong community engagement benefit. We anticipate the Energy Local Club will encourage people to engage more actively with their own energy use and therefore support our wider carbon reduction goals as an island, which comes with cost benefits as well. Financially, an Energy Local Club means reduced costs for local consumers, while also increasing income retained by local generators, as Tom's discussed, and all of those savings and increased income then get reinvested back into the local community. But really, the ultimate aim of this project is to keep more of the value created by local energy circulating within the local economy, rather than it leaving the community. And the Energy Local Club model very much allows us to make that aim a reality. Next slide, please, Raina. So consumer savings are one of the most immediate economic benefits. As a broad example, if we had 80 households signed up to the club and households achieved an annual saving on average of between 10–30%, the impact actually starts to become quite significant quite quickly. If we take an absolute minimum average household energy cost of around £200 per month across the year, that's roughly £2,400 per household annually. So a 10% saving would equal £240 per household per year. Across 80 households, that's £19,200 being retained by local households annually, and that's really a fairly conservative estimate. These figures are all kind of illustrative, but the Energy Local Club model has to operate within the supply of 100 green. So at the moment, their domestic smart export guarantee sits at around 12 pence per kilowatt hour. When I was preparing this presentation, I found a single fixed import tariff from a mainstream electricity supplier that was around 24 pence per kilowatt hour. So if an Energy Local Club set its local match rate at, say, 18 pence per kilowatt hour, which is roughly the midpoint between the export-import rates, that's fairly typical for existing clubs. It creates benefits on both sides. So from a generator perspective, that's an additional 6 pence per kilowatt hour compared to a standard seg rate. And for our proposed 150 kilowatt solar array, and I am simplifying here by ignoring standing charges and other factors, but the annual revenue would increase from around 16,700 or so at 12 pence per kilowatt hour to around 25,000 at 18 pence per kilowatt hour. So that's over an additional £8,000 a year being directly invested back into the community. And then if you look beyond the numbers, there are also wider kind of qualitative benefits for the community. So improved energy literacy, greater resilience to energy price shocks like we're seeing just now, and strong public engagement with and the kind of support for local renewable energy projects, which can never be a bad thing. Next slide, please, Raina. Thank you. So if we look longer term, if we are able to connect our 900 kilowatt community wind turbine, pending P441, everybody touch wood, the scale of local economic impact becomes much larger, given all of our income is reinvested back into the community as a community development trust. So in a good year, our wind turbine generates 3,000 megawatt hours, that's 3 million kilowatt hours every year, which would allow us to connect significantly more consumers. We could even start to consider, we believe, adding the nearby isle of Coal as well as consumers, depending on local uptake here. And they had generators on their island as well, if we could make that model work. This table does make some broad assumptions. In particular, it assumes all of the generation is being used by the Energy Local Club, which isn't unfathomable, but nonetheless, it does show really how sensitive our revenue is to the export rate. At the lower end, if we're only achieving 7 pence per kilowatt hour in a very realistic post 2029, we have no fits. We're on PPA only kind of scenario. Our revenue drops to £210,000 a year. If we move up to around 18 pence, which reflects kind of being Energy Local Club only type position, again, very realistic, that more than doubles that revenue to £540,000. But at the current blended rate of 24 pence per kilowatt hour, which is our PPA and our feed-in tariff, we're looking at around £720,000. So that's what we're on just now. But that said, this is an example of another of the broad assumptions that this table makes, which is that the turbine isn't broken for a substantial part of the year. So we have not seen that level of revenue for quite some time, 2019, basically, when the turbine was last working properly. So in a really optimistic scenario, depending on how fast P441 comes through, we could actually achieve around 35 pence in the short term with both the kind of Energy Local match rate and feed-in tariff in place. And the revenue could actually reach just over £1 million if all of the generation was to be used in the Energy Local Club. That's the potential that we're talking about. So overall, kind of the key point here is that what actually on paper maybe look like relatively small changes in export price have a really significant impact. And every penny per kilowatt hour is worth about 30,000 at this scale. And across the range that is on this table, you can see that's a potential swing of around £840,000 in annual revenue. And last slide, please, Raina. So in terms of what's next for us, in the short term, we're ready to launch Energy Local Club. We're just using our solar and battery system. We're, like I said earlier, about to open to expressions of interest to start building that initial group of households and businesses. Then from there, the focus is on growing the club, refining how it works in practice, encouraging local engagement with energy use and time of use. But longer term, the goal is to bring the turbine into the model subject to P441 and scale the club up so that as much of Tyree's renewable energy as possible is being used locally, with the social and economic benefits having a positive impact on the local community and its economy. And that's me. Thank you very much.
That's great, Emmy. Thank you ever so much. I'm going to move straight on now to Joel Scott and Silas Jones. If you'd like to take the floor, and Raina will share your slides.
Thank you very much. So I'll just take the lead on this one for now, but Silas will help with question and answers at the end. So we started in 2016, although Silas started originally, I think, back in 2011, thereabouts, setting things up. So we've been generating for some time now, and we got slide one. Can we have the next slide, please? So we are a bunch of volunteers who run 2 hydroelectric plants. Currently, we have an income of just over £100,000 a year, and we give grants out to the local community up to, again, nearly £30,000 a year. We are the sole generators at the moment of the Corwin Energy Local Club, but there is another club starting up nearby. Next screen, please. So this is our first one, which we built in, started operating in 2016. It's a 55 kilowatt turbine. I do a rough rule of thumb, 55 kilowatts, 55 houses. As you can see there, it says 50 houses. Cost us £330,000, built by mainly by a share offer, with 80 to 90 shareholders. Next screen, please. Oh, I got a picture. You've actually got a picture there. Next as well, please. So we had a feed-in tariff for the first one, 55 kilowatt. But thanks to the Energy Local Club that started up with that first one, we knew we could double our income with another Energy Local Club. So we started this one in Bonham, 100 kilowatt, and we built it for £415,000, largely with a Welsh Government grant. So roughly 100 houses. Currently, we are at a feasibility study for the third hydro, which is 110 kilowatt down the road. All these turbines, generators, we have tours around them. Recently taken a university, Glyndŵr University, round. They're all very interested, and we also take local scouts round recently as well. So people come and find out what we are doing to generating electricity in this area. 100 houses. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Energy Local Club. So the Energy Local Club, 47 members, as you can see there, and a match rate of 13 pence. We started with a match rate of 7 pence, but because we wanted to spread the money around a bit more, so we doubled it to 30, well, just under doubled it to 13 pence, so that we could get some money to the whole community and not just 47 members. So Corwin is a population of 2,400 people here in North Wales, and we are able to spread the money around more people in the area via the Energy Local Club. Stay on that one for a minute. Multiple benefits I'll be bringing up in a minute. The Energy Local tariff, we are starting a second club up, and it's always a contentious issue that you get the balance right between the tariff that you charge your local community and what what the actual cost of a tariff is. So we are setting the new tariff just for interest. We're setting it at 9p nighttime, 14p daytime, and prime time 19p. So we've done a three-tiered tariff for the second club. That's how we set it up. So still very, very beneficial for the people who join the Energy Local Club. Yeah, next slide, please. So that is the benefit to our local club here in Corwin, £12,758 in a year. That's how much has been benefited by all the 47 members. Like I said, the community benefit from a £30,000 pot, which they can use for the benefit of the community, which I am now going to move on to now. So can you go to the next slide, please? So we've given money back to the community via the Energy Local Club in the main, which we give £3,000 to every year for the actual Energy Local Club members to distribute as minor grants to the community. They have given, that's actually on the next slide, they have given paid for things like, can we just go to the next slide quickly because I've skipped. Can we go to the next slide and then come back? Micro grants, LED lights for club members, LED lights for the community, so everybody could get LED vouchers, and then they had to replace their old lighting. Cooking lessons for free, had free air fryers for families. They were targeted families to help them. Vouchers for household and prepayment. Prepayment is always tends to be on the people who it's more expensive on lower income families. So we help them with prepayment meters. Go into the schools, and they have STEM related projects in the schools, and we pay for any materials that they want in the schools. That's what the Energy Local Club members sort out. The larger grants that we give out directly, when applied for, have helped the town council fit solar panels and solar thermal panels on the roof. Now this gets a direct impact on the council tax, because the town council set the council tax for Corwin town. So everybody, the whole town, benefits by having a reduced council tax. Thanks again to Energy Local. What else have we done? All right. Other projects we've given money to for secondary glazing in the local community hotel, new LED lighting and kitchen equipment in the same hotel. We support other groups exploring hydro energy. So we give money to people who want to start up other generating projects. and we outreach to communities 15, 20 miles away if they and we also support them. We support them as well. So we go there. I covered everything. I think so. Is there another slide? I don't think there is there? Oh, there we are. Diolch. Many thanks for listening. And we'll be in the question and answer session later on. Thank you very much.
That's great, Joel. Thank you. Thank you for that. And yes, last but not least, we have Paul Kelly here from Settle in North Yorkshire. Paul, I think you said you would be happy to show your own slides. Is that correct? There we go.
Yep, and hopefully that's working. Yeah, good morning to you all from Settle. I'm the secretary of the Energy Local Club. We're a small club. There are 5 directors. We're all volunteers. You may know Settle as a market town in the Yorkshire Dales, part of the famous Settle Carlisle railway line. Very much known as the gateway to the Dales. Settle and its adjacent village, Giggleswick, has a population of about 4,000 people. We're in a very visually sensitive landscape. We're right on the edge of the vast Yorkshire Dales National Park. We're abutted by the Bowland National Landscape coming up from Lancashire, and lots of parts of Settle, Giggleswick, and our towns are conservation areas, and those are significant impacts on what we can do. So our club arose out of a community organisation called ACE Settle, Action on Climate Emergency, and this was a member body, volunteer member body, that came about really to develop a local response to the international global climate emergency. And it had various subdivisions, and I was part of the energy group. And we decided we would do a public consultation, and we used a method developed by the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England. We had 2 half-day workshops with local opinion formers, business leaders, and so on, followed by a public questionnaire that was answered by about 200 people. And we got a fantastically positive, strong endorsement for the concept of community energy. We thought, because of the constraints of the locality and the visual impact and so on, that really what we were going to try and seek was something that hadn't been done anywhere else, which was to stimulate a rooftop revolution in solar PV, making use of the large number but of small roofs that we had available to us. PV is fairly simple, well-established technology, and would certainly fit in more easily with our landscape than some other options. We were advised by Energy Local to begin our club with as large a solar panel arrays as we could, and we approached a lot of local community buildings, churches, scouts, cricket club, rugby club, those kind of things. The picture you can see there, the 2 pictures on the left, are the Catholic Church in Settle. The one on the right is the Methodist Church, and both of those are actually low-use buildings, but their congregation raised money to put lots and lots of panels on, more than they needed themselves, in order to be able to support the local community with the club, which was fantastic. Unfortunately, for reasons I'll go into in a moment, there's been connection problems with these roofs, and we've had to look at alternatives. So we started talking to small businesses. Again, we don't have large manufacturing in our rural town, but we have quite a few small businesses. And the problem with them, of course, is that they often self-use a lot of any energy they generate. But we came across this particular one, a small family-run bespoke sofa manufacturer, and they'd very recently put 20 kilowatts of panels on their roof to support their work, but they were really keen on supporting the community. So in fact, they became our first generator. I don't think it's been mentioned so far today, but at least one generator and one consumer in the club has to be a 3-phase. And like most businesses, these were. They self-use most of their electricity 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, but virtually nothing after 5 o'clock and nothing at weekends. So they're not the ideal generator, but at least they got us going. We're small at the moment. We've only got 14 active members, and they're not really typical of how we want the club to develop. Our perfect consumer member is somebody really who's just got your bog standard house. They've not got solar panels, they've not got an EV, they've not got batteries. That will be the ideal consumer. Whereas our first few members, quite a few of them are founders of the club, and they're reasonably tech savvy, got engaged with energy a long time since. So we have a disproportionate number of members who actually also self-generate. Three of those are, well, two of the domestic ones are actually generating into the club. So we've got experience of medium and small size generators. And the one at the top of that chart, the generator only, is the Catholic Church, which finally came into the club on the 1st of May. So we've now got 44 kilowatts of generation available, less what is self-used. So what sort of issues have we had with it? Well, it's already been mentioned. You've got metering problems in Scotland. Yeah, we've got metering problems in the Yorkshire Dales as well, probably for the same reasons, that the topography doesn't really work very well with the system that was devised for the north of England. And we spent about 18 months corresponding with MP, with DESNZ in London, trying to put pressure on suppliers to look at alternative communication methods for the meters, and we've had some success. We're gradually moving forward on that, but that's been a long battle. We did a survey at one point, and about 20% of local people had non-functioning smart meters. There are issues with supply connections. These medium-sized roofs generally they're big enough to start thinking about three-phase supplies, and they don't all have them. So, for example, the Methodist Church on that picture you saw, they need to dig a trench to get to the DNO's wiring to get their three-phase supply in. And unfortunately, the lady who owned the trench was inconsiderate enough to pass away before she'd signed. And so there are frustrations that developed. The Catholic Church is part of a huge national commercial supply agreement for electricity. They're not free to leave that. So they needed to stay with their supplier, but join the club as an exporter. And although that sounds simple, it's taken well over 12 months to actually resolve the technicalities of that. Quite a lot of our buildings are listed. There's a church in Giggleswick that's a listed building in a conservation area. They've now got planning permission for solar panels, which is really positive. But these things take a lot of time. And some of the clubs that we've approached, they're really keen, but they've got other pressures, other development plans. Maybe financing is an issue. So things can. The whole club has progressed more slowly than we hoped. I've mentioned the issue of businesses having high self-use. It's already been mentioned by Tom earlier today that Energy Local is predicated on what are called complex sites, all under the same substation. And the admin of the complex sites for the supplier for 100 Green we've been discovering is really hard work and complex. And it actually creates some barriers for a small club like us, where we want to just incrementally introduce new generators and new consumers in a matched way. And that is actually very, very labour intensive for the supplier. And currently we're being discouraged from doing lots of small things. We really want to concentrate on the bigger generators. And finally, 100 Green themselves, they're clearly made a big commitment to supporting Energy Local and community energy, but they're developing their processes. A lot of things that for their other customers would happen automatically, like billing and so on, is being processed manually for the Energy Local clubs, and that again is very intensive and has caused some slowness in getting to where we want to be as a club. But mostly it's positive. This is a busy slide. I just wanted to share with you the impact. If you look back to the bottom row to August, that's when we only had 8 members and just the furniture manufacturer generating. And even in a sunny month, 14% of the consumption of the 8 members was from solar. By January and winter, we'd gone up to the 13 members, but consumption was less than 1% and only 4% in April. As soon as the Catholic Church came on board, a decent generator, so much different, 16% just in the first few days of May was from the Catholic Church and the other generators. And already that's starting to drop the average price that members are paying down to under 20p a unit average across the time of use tariff. I've put in the set what our tariffs have been, which I don't want to talk to today, but they're there when you get the slides afterwards. If any of you actually want to do some of the maths about those things, it means you've got the information you need. And just to tidy up, where are we looking for the future? We're very fortunate in Settle that we have a community hydro. You can see the pictures of it being installed there in 2010. It develops 45 kilowatts peak. And they're also realizing that they're coming towards the end of their generous feed-in tariff. And suddenly they've been courting us and want to join the club, which is fantastic news. When they come on board, hopefully this summer, we can certainly expand 30, 40 households. And we'll be able to slowly expand the number of individual small roofs. But really, if we want to then get up to the hundreds of members, which is our target ultimately, we need to look at wind. And we have already had funding for a feasibility study for a community wind turbine. Very challenging because of our topography and the scenic nature. But the study was fairly favourable, and unfortunately there are issues with land ownership, but that's something we'll be pursuing as we go forward. Thanks, Kath.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you all of you for your presentations today. I think we've learned quite a lot, and we've certainly heard some interesting facts and information. There's quite a few questions in the chat already. So anybody who would like to speak to the panel and raise any questions or points with the panel, please raise your hands and I'll keep an eye on those. And in the meantime, Raina, if you'd like to pick up the first couple of questions in the chat, please.
Yep, that's fine. I've also put the link to the feedback form in the chat now for anybody who's able to fill it out.
Thanks, Raina. Thank you.
Let me just get this question. I think the first one I saw was for Emmy. So the question is, in Tiree, was your Community Development Trust the legal vehicle for the Energy Local Club, or did you have to set up another co-op specifically for the Energy Learning Club?
No, so the way that it works is that the co-op is its own separate thing. We do not own the co-op. Theoretically, the co-op could, I don't know if our wind turbine or our solar set on fire and cease to exist. If we have other generators, the club could continue without us. So no, the solar is owned by one subsidiary, which is Tiree Community Enterprise Limited, and the turbine is owned by another, which is Tiree Renewables Enterprise Limited, so Energy Limited even. So those two would be generators, much as any private generator would be a generator, and are members of the club that way. And we will facilitate the existence of the co-op, and we'll take on doing the admin for it and things like that, because we're very conscious that there's only 700 people on this island, and everybody who is able to volunteer is already volunteering, and it's not fair to ask them to do that kind of work for free. So we're taking that on so that we can keep that going. But that's how it works for us.
Nice, thanks, Emmy. There's another one here for you. Martin Penning said, really interested in your economic impact slide. How do you calculate these considerable savings?
I mean, look, like I said, it's taking broad assumptions. It's not taking into account the hundreds of complexities you could. It's very much an overview. But in terms of consumer savings, we're off grid. We have no gas, so people's electricity bills are phenomenally high. There's a lot of properties that are electric only. They're not electric only. They're usually mixed electric and then bulk oil. So people are spending a lot more on their electric than they would do elsewhere, even like down in England. So for us, we know from internal research that we've done that at a minimum, people are spending £200 a month average across the year, if they're in all electric, and that really is a minimum conservative estimate. So if you take the kind of between a 10% and % saving, so let's say it's only a 10% saving, 10 and a 30% saving, say it's only a 10% saving, then you can calculate just mathematically you'd be saving those households 240 odd quid a year. And if we could get 80 odd households, which is not an unreasonable number to come to, we hope, eventually, then that you're looking at that £19,000 saving. So I've not got the slides in front of me, but yeah.
Thanks, Emmy. We've got another question here. I'm not entirely sure who it's directed to, but it says, what about the redundancy system and maintenance issues? That might be for you again, Emmy, or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when you've got renewables, that are always the issue of so the turbine, for example, has to go down for regular maintenance. it is a concern if we get to add the turbine in, pending P441, that the turbine will break, and it will at some point have to be retired. Yes, we'll need to manage that carefully and make people who join very aware that that is the risk. But if we're talking really long term, what we would really, really hope is, so our primary substation is actually on the Isle of Mull. So we hope that theoretically we could expand our club to be not just Tiree but Cole, and technically even maybe parts of Mull. That's big time ambitious plans that wouldn't happen anytime soon. So ideally this energy local will expand beyond us, so that by the time let's say we get another 5, maybe 10 years out of the turbine, if we're optimistic, that by the time that turbine retires, there are other generators in the club that's not necessary, or it's not as impactful as it would be. So no, it is very much a concern. We'll need to make people aware of that, and that it's a risk. The bright side with the solar is that it's less of an issue. With the solar, it has much less downtime. Maintenance is much more straightforward. If one panel goes, it doesn't take out the whole array. It's not like in a turbine where you get a couple coils and your generator going, your entire turbine's down. It's a couple panels go on your solar array. Solar array is fine still. So that kind of has that resilience built into it as well.
Nice, thanks, Emmy. I think this next one could probably. Oh, Joel, do you want to come in? You're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the hydroelectric, because of water availability. So we run at 100% between October and end of March, beginning of April. So anybody who joins the Energy Local Club get told you will have lots of generation from those months, October to nearly April. But summer months, they won't get anything. Okay, like we're not running over the summer because there's not enough water. So people need to realize that in energy local clubs. Breakdowns for hydro, very infrequent, very infrequent. A few days here, a few days there. So it's very reliable water turbines. So I just wanted people to know that.
Thanks, Joel. We've got a question. Gordy, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I better unmute myself. Yeah, it's a question generally, and it's on the line of just what we were talking about. I'm the development manager for Fair Isle, which is legitimately the oldest community energy project in Europe, strangely enough. But for that said, they just went into 24-hour supply. It's off grid, so they just went on a 24-hour supply just in 2018. And now we're in a cycle of changing the infrastructure. It's got about 50K of PV currently with a battery array, but unfortunately it was put in as lead, so we're just swapping that out now for lithium, and 3 50K generators, which are turbines which are sitting on the ground because we can't get anybody to service them. And that goes back to that discussion earlier about ensure that if you do develop infrastructure, ensure that the products that you're going to put into play have supply chain availability. But that's not really what I want to ask. What I want to ask is about Emmy and effectively just the lines around the hydro generation is along your tariff layouts, which are effectively behaviorally around time-based household usage, whereas we're kind of taking a different approach. Ours is going to be a traffic light system. We're just changing it, retwigging it based on a slight backroom AI system that'll look at weather forecasting. So when there's lots of electricity being generated, whether it's PV or whether the turbine's spinning, then we drop the tariff substantially. And then when we don't have it, then the tariff goes up. So effectively, it's on generation capacity. So if we're generating off our diesel, then your tariff goes up. And if we're generating off PV or electric, and that's a slightly different example because we don't have the ability to offload anything. We don't have a cable from the grid. We're completely off, and we don't have to deal with a lot of constraints around regulatory issues either. So that gives us some flexibility there. Although we're now looking at bringing cable in only for the long-term supply, and actually the ability for us to sell on somewhere else. So we're looking at various options there. But yeah, so effectively that's what, have you looked at that option? I think effectively for Tiree and understanding the supply of water for the hydro is not going to be great in the summertime. But yeah, I mean, did you look at that?
I mean, in the day, we've not started yet. We are not even technically open to expressions of interest yet. So that sounds very cool, very interesting. And yeah, there's definitely space for changing the tariff in line with what the actual weather does. Flipping that could be cheap on a sunny and windy day here, that's for sure. But yeah, no, I think probably the hydro guys might have thought about that more than me. We're just getting off the ground to start with, and then we'll get into the more complex stuff once we've got it going.
Yeah, it's yeah, generating owning your own electric company from start to finish can be fairly complex. So we're about to swap out all the meters on the island too. So individual household meters. So all that stuff is and we're just so anybody who doesn't realize we're the most remote community in the United Kingdom. So it's a 30-minute plane ride or a 4-hour boat ride to get to the island. So it's pretty remote, and to get service in is we on host. We're lucky that someone has just taken a croft on the island that is a qualified commercial and residential electrician that has worked renewables. So bonus for us. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. One other question I see in the chat here is, how do I go about approaching a licensed supplier to see if they are willing to support a local energy club?
I think Mary Gilly from Energy Local is actually here or was here, and she's picked that up. And
Okay.
actually, that's one of the reasons Energy Local was set up, because it is complex to work with a licensed supplier and costly. So Energy Local is the middle person, if you like, between the supplier and the community. So they actually deal with the licensed supplier. So people would need to get in touch with Energy Local direct to start their journey, I would suggest.
Cool. I don't think there's any more in the chat just now. Paul?
Yeah, I was just seeing the one in the chat from David saying, not sure how it works, that Octopus will pay him 12p a kilowatt hour for export, and then he can buy off peak mostly because he's obviously got solar panels, so he's not needing much daytime electricity. And I think that goes back to the comment I made that really the ideal consumer, particularly for a club that is mostly dependent on solar as we are at the moment, is the ideal consumer is not somebody who can self-generate and benefit from export guarantees and from being able to defer most of their consumption to cheap overnight. So I think if you were a generator in the club, and this is where we're hoping as things develop, we can encourage people to be small scale generators, and hopefully the complexity for 100 Green will sort of even itself out so that they can encourage us to do this, is that, the match price will give you 14, 15, 18p, whatever the club decides. For our sort of local churches, Scouts Club, etc., that are generating, producing 20 kilowatt panels or whatever, the best commercial PPA they will get is 7 or 8p a unit. So the incentive for them, if they join the club, is they'll be exporting at the match price, 14, 15 pence. And that's how we hope that there'll be a bit of a solar revolution. Because when clubs and people with medium-sized roofs do the maths, they'll suddenly say, actually, we can both support the local community and get a really quick payback and then a subsequent income on investing in panels. But I think the consumer who's got everything already, panels, batteries, etc., they're not the ideal club member.
Yeah, we're thinking along the same lines with generators as well, Paul. Here, like it's particularly that we've got there's a huge amount of roof space, particularly in terms of looking to maybe hopefully work with the council. We've got and the NHS, we've got the care home, the school, huge amounts of roof space. And actually, once you look at the potential export compared to the 7 pence you would normally get on the PPA, but if you can get an Energy Local club up and running, it's really quite substantial.
Yeah, thanks both. That's really interesting, and thank you, Paul, for picking that point up. I think that's going to be really useful for people. Raina, I can't see any other questions in the chat. I think you've covered everything. Gordy,
Just quickly, sorry, I just want to ask
No, it's all right.
Emmy, on your panel generation, do you know the size of your generation panels that you installed?
You mean like
Not
physical
physically, but
dimensions?
not capacity-wise.
So it's 150 kilowatts, 50 kilowatt battery with 102 kilowatt hour capability on
Yeah,
it.
50 kilowatt battery.
Yeah, with but 102 kilowatt hour.
So each individual panel, do you know, are they 240, 280, 600?
I
Have
can't
you,
remember. I'm so sorry, I can't remember off the
I'm
top of
just
my head.
curious. It's a,
But if you're interested, then you can absolutely just I can find out and I'll find your contact details and I'm happy
I'll
to send
email
you the
you.
specs.
Yeah, we can have
Yeah,
a chat
ping
about
me an
that.
email and
Yeah,
I'll
great.
send you the info. Happy to help anybody who's interested specifically in the solar. And it's worth I was saying as well for anyone else who's interested in doing energy local or of any kind of local energy market. And you're looking at maybe installing your own generation as part of that, and you're doing solar. And if you are somewhere that is very, very windy like us, and you realize that the plate arrays are not haven't got the right spec for the wind rating so that you get, I highly recommend ballasted system. So not even the ones that we've got aren't even drilled into the ground. They are just ballasted and they stood up to winds that we don't even know how strong they were because everything broke, we reckon, about 125. So yeah, ballasted solar is a really good way to go if you live in an exposed area. Highly recommend.
If it works in Tyree, it'll work anywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's right on the beach as well. It's really coastal, so it's really exposed. But it's done the holding up really, really well. We couldn't be happy with them from that point of view.
Thank you. Thanks, Emmy, and thanks, Gordy. Silas, I'm conscious that you've been happy to sit on the panel and that your colleague Joel was actually delivering the presentation. I don't want to drop you in it at all or surprise you, but just wondering if there's any points that you wanted to pick up on or that you resonate with, anything useful that you might want to share, any challenges you've had or are having.
Oh wow, that is definitely dropping me in it.
Sorry, I don't mean
That's
to.
okay.
I don't mean
No,
to. I
no, no,
just don't
no,
want
no,
you sitting there doing nothing.
no,
And
it's okay. I said I covered Joel because he had to leave at 2:15. So yeah, I mean, there's been loads of challenges. I think getting the community to believe that they can do this was the biggest challenge at the beginning, and getting the first scheme up and running. I mean, I said in the chat, I started looking at, we carried out feasibility studies back in 2009, and we actually built the first scheme in 2016. And it took a lot of hand holding, a lot of encouragement, a lot of getting different groups in to come and talk about what had worked in other places. But once the group had built their first scheme, and you can see the enthusiasm for Joel, we've built 2, we'll be on to probably 3. We've got 4 or 5 lined up in the background at the feasibility studies going on. So, the group, once it's up and running, the confidence just builds. And I think that's really important in our communities to take ownership of that stuff and build that confidence, and that knowledge and technical expertise in the community is brilliant. And what we see then is a growing confidence in and a growing enthusiasm for using those savings and that money that we generate locally to affect change in the community. Now, the stuff that we do is, by comparison, quite small in terms of scale. They're small hydro, so the money available is small, but they're very impactful changes that we can make. And when Emmy when Emmy's talking about the type of money that would potentially be available with some of those bigger schemes, I mean, that's extremely transformational stuff, but critically in the hands of the local community, which is gold dust. And we're able to give grants now to support people and groups that there's nowhere else for them to go because they're so small. Maybe they don't have a constitution, maybe they don't have a bank account, and we can just get them going and just give them something that's really impactful and deliver change because we understand them. We're in the community, we know who they are. We're not a funder that's 200 miles away or further. So I think it's really impactful stuff that you can do here in community energy and the energy local clubs, giving people the opportunity to benefit from generation in their community, I think is really, really important. Because otherwise, a lot of these industries can be seen as quite extractive. And I think there's all sorts of political connotations in different parts of the country. I think similarly in Scotland as it does in Wales. So it's really important for us to kind of get the benefit of that generation locally. Sorry, but there's loads more about but that'll do.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, Silas. That is, yeah, you've raised some good points there, and I think it is a case. It's you're in it for the long haul. There's so many stages to any community energy project, as most people in this room know. And it is a long-term plan, even just to get it up and running. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens in a couple of years. You have to, sometimes you've even got to establish a constituted group to begin with, and that's after you've spoken to people informally in the community to ensure that there's enough support even just to do that. So yeah, it does involve a lot of work. But if you've got the right attitude and you've got the enough drive in the community and enough commitment in the community, and enough individuals who will keep picking that up and keep driving it forward and taking others with them, then that's how it's going to happen. It's like any major community project, energy or otherwise. It takes that to make it happen, as well as lots of other things. But as Silas said, once a community is, especially if they're skeptical to begin with, once they've seen the success of something to begin with, and especially when it affects them in a positive way, that really gets people hooked. And not only that, you create new advocates in the community to spread that word and to speak to others and to draw others in and get others involved. And the more support you've got, obviously, as we know, the more support you've got in a community, the better chance you've got of these energy projects and other projects getting off the ground and being successful. Emmy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it is just touching on that point about community. The way to do energy local, if you can do it with community and renewable, like the impact, it's great impact as it is, but if you can do it with community and renewables as generators, the impact is even greater. But it's not for the faint of heart, but it's such a rewarding project. And then I was at the All Energy Conference of the week, and I gave someone the example to kind of explain to them the stretch and the commitment of some of these people who are running community and renewables. Is that the wind turbine too that we have? The very first emails that I found about that were when I was 5. So I was 5 when the plans for this turbine started. Now it's nearly 25 years later, and I'm now kind of in the stages of planning for the retirement. So it really is a lifetime project. It's huge. It's not just the turbine's only 16 years old, but the whole planning started many years before that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really is a commitment, but boy, is it worth it, particularly when you are working for a community development trust and you get to do, much like Silas was saying, you understand your local community, the grants that we're able to give out and have been able to give out for the turbine, and we hope that Energy Local will allow us to continue to give out. We've donated millions to the community, and millions more have been invested back into the community through things like our community-owned fuel station. Wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have a community-owned wind turbine. And Energy Local, we hope, will let us continue to do kind of big capital projects like that for many years to come. So it really is worthwhile doing, but don't underestimate the hard work that it will take if you want to do a community-owned generator into your Energy Local club. So worth doing, but a heck of a lot of work and a lot of commitment. But if anyone has any questions about community-owned solar or wind that we can help with, then absolutely please get in touch. I think my email is on the slides, it'll be in the stuff, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. We're always happy to help wherever we can.
Thanks, Emmy. We'll be sharing the speakers' emails in the follow-up email. So, you can all get in touch with them at a later point if you need to. Silas.
Yeah, I was touch on something there. So we talked about how long it takes to plan it, and then getting the group to set up a constitution and make that first step and that commitment. I think my experience in North Wales, in Cordwan particularly, was that it took another group back in those days. Physically coming to Cordwan and talking to the group and talking about their experience of having done it and giving them. They'd listen to me talk about it endlessly, but it was really kind of abstract and theoretical. And I think, there's a load of people on this call, I just having access to a group that's already done it, someone like Emmy, someone like Joel, you can talk very real, in a real way about what it means. That I think would have shortcutted maybe 2 or 3 years out of this process, but now we can do that through technology. And when I was doing that before, I had to try and drag somebody up to Cordwan. which is, not compared to the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, but it's fairly remote for Wales. So yeah, I think that access and giving access to people like who've done it is brilliant. And the other thing, and I will stop now, is the kind of the arc of these things is so long. Emily's talking about being 5 when this stuff was talked about. Is actually we have a lot of founders like ourselves who've built this up and started it, and we're getting old. These are 20-year projects. So by the time we're 10 years in, I'm the youngest director. Succession planning is the next thing that is going to be a problem for us. Is bringing in those volunteers to work with us and take over and pass on that knowledge and expertise. So for a lot of you on the call who are like just starting out on this journey, it's not something that's at the forefront of your mind. But I wish I'd started thinking about it maybe 5 years ago. Anyway, I will stop now. Thanks for the episode.
No, you have picked up on a really pertinent point there, Silas. And I think in community energy in particular, that's so important, because it does require specific knowledge and a specific skill set in certain areas of community energy, as we know. And yes, definitely appealing to younger people in the community and bringing them into the fold to begin with anyway, and get their support. That's a difficult one, and there are specialists support groups that will actually specialize in communities being able to do that very thing. But it's those younger people and bringing them on board and getting their support. They are the ones eventually who will be taking over as the volunteers and directors for those organizations. But they do need to, they need to build up their enthusiasm for it, as well as their skill set and expertise. And we just need to get them young, basically. We need more Emmys. We need a lot more Emmys in the world.
I'm not sure I go quite as far to say I still count as young, but
I think
in the context of community energy, I tend to be the youngest person in the room. So.
There's one or two, Raina, I don't know if you want to pick up one or two extra questions in the chat before we go. We've got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we've got one from David who has asked, are there any Vox Pops or case studies of leaders of energy local clubs being people not having their own generation? It would be good to hear their voices. Does anybody know? Emmy?
I have no idea, but Mary will, I'm sure.
Okay.
I don't know if she's still here, but I'm sure if you get in touch with Energy Local, I'm sure they have case studies and things like that.
I think Energy Local is definitely the place to start. Yeah, absolutely. I would say so.
You could definitely, if I've understood that question correctly, you could definitely, don't see any issue with setting up an Energy Local club if you yourself don't have a generator. I think that's the kind of what's being asked, I think. That would absolutely be possible.
That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah. No, it might be a little bit trickier, but if you've got, I don't know, if you have like a big school that has solar panels on and the council are willing to work with you, or if it's just a large private generator with their own turbine or something, like just a private owner who happens to have a turbine, then that, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing to restrict that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Just if I can chip in, Kath. I mean, we don't own any of our generators in Settle, and have no intention of doing, unless we move to a community wind turbine, which would almost certainly need a different legal entity to the cooperative that is the club. But yeah, all our panels are on buildings owned by other people, by those other people.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a different model, slightly different model, isn't it? Again, and certainly different communications within the community because of it. If nobody has any more questions, I would just like to, first of all, thank everybody for coming along today. And a special thanks to our speakers and panelists for their contributions today and helping shed a lot more light, hopefully, on local energy markets generally and energy local clubs specifically. I've noticed at the start of our chat, a lot of people introduced themselves, which is lovely, but there were very few email addresses. So as you have publicly put your names in there, I'll pick those up and put the email addresses in the follow-up email. If you don't want me to do that, please get in touch with me and let me know. But I'm assuming you do want to network, having put your name in the beginning of the chat today. And I think that's all I've got to say now, apart from a reminder for the feedback form. That is important because it helps us identify exactly what your needs are and helps direct us to doing sessions and other events like this to help support you. So please do complete it. And Raina has popped that in a couple of times in the chat, so it's easy for you to find. Surprise, surprise, it'll be in the follow-up email as well, so you're not gonna miss it. Okay, everybody, hope you can enjoy some of this sunshine. People going on holiday, have a good trip, and thank you again for coming. And I hope you found this interesting and useful.